Well, I've done a lot of talking, and you've heard me do a lot of talking, so I don't need to talk long. This is very disappointing, and it's disappointing that my colleagues let the president sort of beat him into submission. I mean, after they voted last week to basically say, this is an important enough issue to discuss in front of the American public, as the Constitution requires, the White House put a full court press on, unlike any I've seen in 13 years here, to stop a public debate about a war. You know, a full court press to stop a public debate. If they were that righteous about the justness of this cause or the validity of their legal rationale, they wouldn't be afraid of a public debate, but they're afraid of that. And so they really went after the Republicans to try to switch enough votes to come up with a different outcome tonight. And the outcome they came up with was interesting. They didn't vote against the War Powers Resolution. They voted that what we've witnessed, 4 months of military action, more than 200 combatants killed, U.S. troops injured, 16,000 troops, and massive military assets arrayed in an armada around Venezuela, and threats for more invasion, threats for more activity, control of Venezuelan politics, control of the Venezuelan economy. They just voted on the floor that that's not hostilities. And J.D. Vance, who made his chops here in the Senate and even as a vice presidential candidate as the anti-forever war guy, as the focus on the home front guy and don't spend money overseas, comes in to cast the tie-breaking vote for forever wars and end running Congress and doing it in the skiff behind closed doors so you're not honest with the American public about it. So obviously I'm very disappointed in it. However, we accomplished some things. Within 12 hours after the vote last week, President Trump announced via tweet in the middle of the night that he had canceled a second invasion that was going to happen in Venezuela. And today, in order to get Senator Young's vote and Senator Hawley's vote, the White House made a number of public commitments to them about Senator Rubio coming finally to do a public hearing before Foreign Relations and the need for formal authorization if any boots on the ground are needed in Venezuela. These are not sufficient for me, but these were not things that we would have had we not filed this resolution. Canceling an invasion, I think that's a good end. Getting a commitment that there will be no boots on the ground without seeking a formal congressional authorization, that's a good end. Some of the other commitments they got are a good end. Not sufficient for me, but it's taught me something. Following these War Powers resolutions is a good idea, because when you do, you make them have to work their ass off to keep their people in the corral, and the only way they can do is actually by making some commitments that they otherwise wouldn't have. Now, we are wise to be wary about commitments by these guys, but when they've made them, and they made them publicly, then all senators can monitor to see whether they actually live up to them, especially those for whom those commitments were critical to changing their vote. So we're going to monitor the commitments they've made, make sure they're good to them. And the other thing we're going to do is this. We're going to be filing a whole lot more War Powers resolutions. Because what we've learned from this, and I learned the same thing by filing a War Powers resolution after the Soleimani strike in 2019, when you do it and you get Republican votes, it sends a message to the White House that, wow, my people who are hearing from my constituents are not happy about this. And it causes them to take action that they otherwise wouldn't take. So the result today gives me a strong incentive with my colleagues, and we're already talking about this, to challenge the president's bellicosity toward Greenland and Denmark, toward Cuba, toward Mexico, toward Colombia, towards Iran, towards Nigeria. Privilege resolutions that they can run but they can't hide. We're going to have votes on all of these, and they're going to have to whip these votes very hard. I know how hard they'll have to whip to get Republicans to support them on the Greenland-Denmark vote. They're going to have to whip that very, very hard. And so we have discovered a sensitivity and a vulnerability by using this method, and we're going to do it a whole lot more. And with that, Adam, my great colleague, who actually, he and I started working on these together when he was over on the House side, and we were very much aligned on them, and how good it has been to have him in the Senate working just hand in hand on these important matters.
Thank you.